with the public. Let's get our friends, our colleagues, our families involved. Let's engage working with the media. Let's send a message to our politicians that policy without science is a recipe for disaster. And if they don't get it, let's run for office and vote them out. Most of all, and finally, let's send a message to Mr. Trump today. America runs on science. Thank you very much.
When science and research are under attack, what do we do? When science and research are under attack, what do we do? Thank you.
I became a scientist because I wanted to help make the world a better place for everybody. Throughout my short career journey, I found myself closely following the growing ideological divide on climate change and other issues that are informed by facts that are not up for debate. It was frustrating to watch politicians and political correspondents incorrectly represent science, especially important issues that impact every person on the planet, like climate change. Frequently, the advice of scientists is dismissed and misrepresented by the people who are inconvenienced by it. I have personally had my expertise dismissed simply because of my gender. Unfortunately, this experience is not unique to me, but happens to all underrepresented groups in STEM. The 2016 election dialogue brought to the forefront a mixture of sexism and anti-knowledge sentiments. It deeply motivated me to do more, not only for me, but for people who it would most negatively impact.
We are warriors. Indigenous communities are on the front line of climate change, and we've seen that recently at Standing Rock. Standing Rock is on the front line and one where the battle still continues. There will be many more front lines and many more battles that our Native communities continue to face. We need Indigenous scientists now more than ever. We need scientists with their hearts and their minds in the same place. We need scientists who are well versed in their Native cultures and can walk the lines between the traditional ways of knowing and the modern ways of science. Our Native
How are you guys feeling? Yeah? Stand up for science. Stand up for science.
When we stand up for science, we are standing with our brothers and sisters at Standing Rock and the indigenous peoples who are trying to protect their homelands. When we stand up for science, we are standing up for our brothers and sisters here in Roxbury who are seeing the displacement of toxic waste sites and midnight dumping into their community. When we stand up for science, we are standing up for the peoples throughout the Pacific Islands who are seeing their homelands washed away by rising tides caused by climate change. When we stand up for science, we stand up for environmental justice. So since the late 1970s, we can see that major corporate polluters have organized themselves into a very sophisticated infrastructure made up of think tanks, public relations firms, research centers, foundations, and so forth, with one goal in mind, and that is to roll back the regulations which are designed to protect the health and well-being of the American people, but also threaten to reduce their profits and their control over the marketplace. And I refer to this infrastructure as the polluter industrial complex. And we should not underestimate their power. Just in the last few years alone, the polluter industrial complex has channeled over $7 billion in income to some 150 different think tanks that are voted just to debunking the science of climate change. Again, these are some of the most powerful corporations in the world. They're leading a major corporate offensive on science. They are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into America's political campaigns to elect anti-science, anti-environmental candidates. Scott Pruitt, the head of the EPA, for example, as Attorney General, received hundreds of thousands of dollars in contributions from the fossil fuel industry. He sued the very agency he now heads in an attempt to roll back environmental regulations in order to serve the interests of the oil and gas industry in his home state of Oklahoma. And he even had the lobbyists for Devon Energy write those proposals. So the attack on science represents a grave threat to the future well-being of humanity and the planet, especially around climate change, which is perhaps the most pressing issue of our time. Trump and the political or the polluter-industrial complex, I think, want to take us into a new dark ages, where the world is flat, it's cooling, where leeches or toxic chemicals can cure disease, and where notions of evolution or science in the public interest are heresy. The accompanying breakdown in public trust in science, a disregard for facts, basic truth, and the rule of law of itself risk destabilizing society. In fact, we could say that the attack on science, particularly climate science, poses an existential threat to human civilization as we know it. Denying science is a declaration of war on current and future generations, and it is unacceptable, and we are here to stand up and fight for our rights as citizens. We will not go back. We are here today to take a stand on the war on science, the war on truth, and the war on democracy itself. And we stand in solidarity with the communities that bear the greatest brunt of these environmental and climate-related injustices, especially low-income communities of color, indigenous peoples, and those of the global south. Thank you very much for that.